Welcome to State of Politics. I'm David Zhang. There's a recent case of a Hong Kong socialite named Abby Choi, a 28-year-old who was brutally murdered by her ex-husband and in-laws. Her body was cut into pieces and they even made a human soup. Now, the 6 suspects are being tried in court, but the motives for the killing is still unclear. What seems like a simple family feud is, I think, much more and much darker than this. And it ties into the Chinese Communist Party's decades-long control of Hong Kong, using the special city for money laundering and corruption. Let's first talk about the case itself. On 27th of February, Hong Kong police charged 4 people, 28-year-old Alex Kwong with the gruesome murder of his ex-wife, along with his father, Kwong, who is 65, and the older brother, Anthony Kwong, 31. These are all important names, as well as they also charged the mother-in-law, Jenny, for obstruction of justice. And starting in early February, officials claimed that the trio of ex-husband, ex-father-in-law, and ex-brother-in-law rented an apartment in the picturesque coastal Dragon Tail village, which is 30 minutes north of Hong Kong. And they turned it into a splatter-proof body disposal workshop where parts of Abby Choi's corpse were later found concealed in pots of soup, as well as parts of it were in a fridge. 2 people also connected to the case were arrested, a mistress of the father-in-law and a man whose last name is Lam. They were tied to the case as well. Now, Abby was first reported missing on February 21st, last seen picking up her children. She has 4 children in total, 2 from her first marriage and 2 from her current. On the night of her murder, here's the interesting part, her ex-husband, Alex Kwong, had called Abby's current husband's family, who his name is Chris, and he was asking them, quote, "Why did you not tell me before you called the police?" And it was then revealed that Kwong, the ex-father-in-law, demanded that the victim's current in-laws, so Chris's family, to pay for their attorney dues. Now, why on earth would the former in-laws ask the current in-laws to pay for their murder lawyer expenses when the former in-laws murdered Abby? And that means her murder had something to do with both the ex-husband's family and her current husband's family. The close friendship and relationship also between Abby's ex-husband and her current husband's family, it also seems to be unnatural almost. Alex Kwong and Abby Choi got married when she was just 18 years old, and they have 2 kids. The couple divorced sometimes before 2016, and Abby Choi went on to start a new relationship with Chris Tam, whose father had founded a well-known rice noodle restaurant chain in Hong Kong. More on that noodle chain later. What had happened, and seems to be puzzling many people, is that why are the Kwongs and the Tams and the Choi family all seem so okay with Abby Choi's relationship with his former ex-in-laws? And as well as the 3 families seems to be very close. It was also revealed that Abby Choi would sometimes go on holiday trips with both Mr. Tam and Mr. Kwong's families together. In January this year, Abby had actually arranged for the Tam husband and wife, the ex-in-laws, and the Kwong husband and wife, the current in-laws, to go to a temple together. Mystery number 2. So Abby Choi is heavily financing his former in-laws. And this is no secret. Abby Choi actually maintained very close ties with the Kwongs even after the divorce. Police say that she bought a $9 million, 4-bedroom, 18,000 square foot luxury apartment for the family and the 2 children in Hong Kong's exclusive Kandori Hill neighborhood, as well as helping her former brother-in-law buy another home. She bought all of it cash too, $9 million mansion. And her net worth is estimated to be about $12 million US dollars. So this is as she is married to Chris Tam. She at one point ran a pancake stall with Anthony Kwong, remember the brother-in-law who also was a part of her murder, and she also hired Anthony Tam as one of her personal drivers. Now, based on the Instagram account allegedly belonging to Anthony, there's several very friendly photos featuring Abby, wishing her a happy birthday and referring to as sis. After photos of her ex and her ex-brother-in-law were circulating online, people actually began questioning why it seemed like Anthony and Abby were dating, as they seemed much closer than just an in-law relationship. Now, this is also a photo from a movie premiere starring Donnie Yen, and here you see that Abby took her ex-husband's family. And according to the latest report, Abby had suspected changes in the Kwong family last November, but in January, after seeing them at a movie premiere together, a close friend had revealed that things he thought were changing or had gotten better. So even after divorce from her ex-husband Alex Kwong, she allowed the Kwong family to live rent-free in a multi-million-dollar home. Many had concluded that it was over Abby trying to sell the home that she was murdered. Could be, but after some researching, I suspect more may be involved. One quick reason is that the home that she bought for cash, $9 million, US dollars actually, Abby allegedly tried to sell it for just 1.2 million US dollars. Now, given the fact that the $9 million mansion she got for the ex-in-laws are done in such a sketchy way, I'll talk a little bit about that later, and how low it was selling for, there seems something fishy going on. But let's pause here for a second and talk about who Abby Choi really is. Now, Abby Choi is rich, right? She is not, though, the same rich and famous and influential socialite that many media are trying to paint her to be. People who lived in Hong Kong for decades do not know her. And in fact, her online presence as a socialite is also relatively low. In fact, according to a news outlet in Hong Kong, when she was with her ex-husband Alex, the couple had lived in an apartment complex, two-bedroom apartment, called Whampoa Garden. Now, that's a complex that was built in 1985, and that's not the lifestyle of a socialite. It wasn't until Abby married Chris in 2016 did she suddenly explode in wealth. And according to CTI News in Hong Kong, her Instagram rich photos began to take on a new level after marrying Chris in 2016. Her last public appearance was on the cover of L'Officiel, a French fashion magazine. And 2 weeks prior to her murder, she was at Paris Fashion Week. Some online speculate that Abby Choi's Instagram is very similar to the posing methods used by fraudulent groups and using her as a front, as some of the photos are not like the selfies of rich people. Especially from 2014 to 2015, they all seem like sporadic and low-quality images, and they deliberately took photos of famous brands. Seems to be like they were trying to fool somebody. Now, December 16 rolls around, and it seems to have all changed, where it changed to parties and personal attendances to photos that actually show her engaging with these high-class fashion brands, and so on. Now, here comes the mystery number 3. Alex Kwong and Abby Choi, as well as her current husband Chris Tam, had known each other since at least 15 years old. Chris Tam and Abby Choi were classmates at 10 years old. Alex Kwong, the Kwong family, has multiple crimes under their belt. His own name, so Alex Kwong, several years ago, he used to use a gay dating app to scam people over jewelries, now worth 660,000 US dollars in damage. However, Alex Kwong has been able to traverse between Hong Kong and mainland China all these years without any problem running to law enforcement. Now, exactly the amount of time since his first theft charge was laid out. And he was even able to attend the movie premiere joined by the police chief, who also Abby invited, without getting into any problems. But we understand that in China, without connections to big political power, you simply cannot walk freely around, let alone travel, when there are criminal charges laid against you. Alex Kwong's father, who was also part of the murder, his name is Kwong, is actually a former police officer who had served as a detective sergeant stationed at the Mong Kok police station and was suspected of raping a woman in 2005. Now, he walked away from that without any jail time. And somehow the entire family has been able to live all these years without proper jobs, and they can somehow survive. Now, was Abby the one giving them the financial support needed for them to survive? The mansion that Abby bought for his ex-family is also under the father's name. The former husband's family was heavily crushed by debt collection as well and bankruptcy. So how was the real estate agent, or even maybe the agency there, able to grant them this purchase? Well, sure that Abby bought it for $9 million cash, but he was a known criminal suspect, and he probably has really poor credit histories. Now, wasn't anybody investigating him? We don't know. What we could say is that Abby was the one that paid for the property. It's under the former father-in-law's name, but then why were they in debt in the first place if Abby could be financing them? Now, the question is, why would Abby Choi finance his ex-in-laws? Well, just because she was rich enough? It didn't make sense because Abby, if she had known that her ex-husband and family are all criminals, then why would she still maintain a close relationship with all of them? Also remember, Abby Choi had hired Alex Kwong's brother, Anthony Kwong, who goes by Damon on Instagram for some reason, as her driver, and they've taken very close photos together. Now, of course, these are all unexplained. Now let's talk about mystery 4. As we just discussed, Kwong and the Tams, their ex-in-laws and the current in-laws of Abby Choi, they seem okay with Abby Choi maintaining a close relationship among the two families, which seems rather strange by any cultural or traditional standards. They seem okay with the fact that the Abby Choi and the ex-in-laws are close, and also at the same time, it seems like she is close with her current in-laws. But I think most people would agree that people are kind of selfish when it comes to emotional and as well as financial situations, let alone supporting their former in-laws. Now, what we don't understand is how could the Tam family not know that Alex Kwong and his father are wanted suspects who are walking around freely, and they somehow aren't opposing Abby from basically staying and financially supporting her ex-in-laws. Abby and her current husband, Chris Tam, actually never legalized their marriage. They've only had a wedding ceremony. Now, many media in Hong Kong are asking this question. The Tam family is very well known in Hong Kong because of a chain noodle restaurant. And this noodle chain was sold to a Japanese company called Toridol Holdings Corp. In 2017. However, in actuality, the investment shares are 3-7. Toridol Holdings only controlled 37% of the shares. Meanwhile, a Chinese investor named Qi Ji, his holding company He controls 63% of the shares. In other words, this so-called buyout from a Japanese company is in reality hidden beneath a mainland China investment. Who is Qi Ji? Well, he's actually called the godfather of entrepreneurs in China, and his ties to the CCP are very significant. But we'll talk more about this later. Now, at the time of the purchase, the Tam noodle chain was actually making $20 million a month in profit, just profit. Chris Tam is the son of one of the owners. After marrying Abby Choi in 2016, remember, this was actually when Abby Choi started to get really rich and started being more of a socialite. Chris Tam knowingly still allowed Abby and her ex-in-laws to maintain close relationships while watching her pay and finance all whatever they were doing. Also, many photos show that Chris is quite comfortable around his mother-in-law, who is Abby's mother. Here we see photos of them kissing on cheeks and giving close hugs. And this seems to also drew a lot of online comments expressing discomfort with how comfortable they are around each other. Now let's talk about Abby Choi's family. Now, her family is very interesting. There's not much about her family, other than the fact that she is the oldest of 4 daughters, and her mother has a titanium and metal business after owning restaurants for a while. Now, Abby's family is wealthy, but exactly when she got wealthy, we don't know. But as I said, exactly when this seems to happen is based on the same timeline that she herself got rich. Now, we can see that the family seems to be well connected in at least southern China. Abby's mother has a titanium business in Hainan, which is a key part of the People's Liberation Army military development, as titanium is light but hard, which is good for aviation and aerospace use. But being rich doesn't mean that they have influence in Hong Kong, let alone the world. So what happened was Abby Choi's last post on Instagram showed that her appearance on the digital cover of L'Officiel, which is a magazine that sounds French, right, seems to be her explanation to why she's now going global. Now, although the magazine is in French and it's supposedly based in France, but it's actually not owned by a French company anymore. L'Officiel was recently acquired by Hong Kong-based AMTD Official. AMTD is actually known as the controversial investment bank behind a 32,000% IPO that shocked Wall Street. Now, AMTD is chaired by Calvin Choi, who, despite having the same last name, they're not actually related by blood. But Abby appeared in the magazine after the acquisition of L'Officiel by AMTD, and someone wants to push Abby Choi's influence around. Now, AMTD's Calvin Choi became the richest man in China after beating Li Ka-shing. His net worth is expected to be about $37 billion. All right, after all this rambling about, what I'm trying to say is that in 1997, the former British colony, that is Hong Kong, was handed back to China under the promise of 50 years of freedom. Since then, one communist family has had particularly a large influence in Hong Kong. That's the Zhang faction, which is headed by now-dead communist leader Jiang Zemin. They led a 20-plus year of what's called silently making big fortune. That's basically you just make money any way you want as long as you keep it under the table. The Zhang faction was the head of the corruption in the Communist Party. They formed systemic corruptions across all levels. There was a saying that if you don't find graft scandals among even the local level of the party officials, then you're not enough of a communist official. Key members of this faction held the financial, digital, entertainment, and banking sectors. Specifically, one man named Zhang Qinghai controlled the entertainment industry in Hong Kong. His family also cultivated underground gangs for the purpose of solving problems in all the streets, all the while infiltrating the Hong Kong government. So it's an open secret that the CCP uses Hong Kong as a money laundering outlet. Now, there's plenty of white gloves here. One man last month was also sentenced to 18 years in jail for money laundering and organized crimes. His name is Alvin Chow. He owned Sun City Group in Macau, and that's one of these white gloves organizations, and he himself is one. Now, of the 6 people arrested on the murder of Abby Choi, the last one, his surname is Lam. He's actually tied to Alvin Chow. Abby Choi has a close friend named Hera, who is also tied to Alvin Chow. Now, was Abby Choi part of a money laundering scheme? We don't know exactly. especially the fact that there's no evidence suggesting so. But it seems like the families, with the purchase of the mansion, as well as the way that they form relationships, it just seems so strange. Now, Abby Choi is also tied to this guy named Chi Ji, remember, the so-called godfather of entrepreneurs. Now, Chi is only as successful as the regime allows him to be, just as Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba and Ant Group, can be silenced at any moment. There seems to be backings of the CCP anytime you go see one of these financial guys being arrested or investigated. So it makes sense, because it turns out Chi Ji and a recently vanished Chinese billionaire named Bao Fan are also part of an association called the Young Angels. Now, they're China's top emerging billionaires who also know each other. And it seems like because the CCP controls the financial sector, no matter what happens, Choi's death is not a simple one. Now, it's puzzling why she was murdered in a twisted family situation such as this, where the Kwongs, the Tams, and the Chois seems to be so close to each other, more than a normal in-law relationship would seem. But in the end, we would never get conclusive evidence as to why she was murdered. Was she a front for a big money laundering scheme, or was there some inter-faction war going on and she was the victim? No idea. But that's the story and the mysterious murder of Abby Choi. Thanks for watching today's State of Politics. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below what you think about her murder. I'm David Zhang. This is State Politics. We'll see you next time.